this lecture video, we are going to talk about test-driven development. Test-driven development, abbreviated as TDD, is an approach to program development in which you interleave testing and code development. Essentially, you develop the code incrementally along with the test for that increment. You don't move to the next increment until the code that you have developed passes its test. Test-driven development was introduced as a part of agile methods such as extreme programming. However, it can also be used in plan-driven development processes. The fundamental process of TDD is shown in the diagram at the bottom of the slide. The steps in the process are as follows. You start by identifying new functionality or the increment of the functionality that is required. They should normally be small and implementable in a few lines of code. You write a test for this functionality and implement this as an automated test. This means that the test can be executed and will report whether or not it has passed or failed. You then run the test along with other tests that have been implemented. Initially, you have not implemented the functionality, so the new test will fail. This is deliberate as it shows that the test adds something to the test set. You then implement the functionality and rerun the test. This may involve refactoring existing code to improve it and adding new code to what is already there. Once all the tests run successfully, you move on to implementing the next chunk of the functionality. So this is test-driven development, where developing the code and testing it happens side by side. As well as better problem understanding, the other benefits of TDD are listed here. The first one is code coverage. In principle, every code segment that you write should have at least one associated test. Therefore, you can be confident that all of the code in the system has actually been executed. Code is tested as it is written, so defects are discovered early in the development process. The second benefit is regression testing. A test suite is developed incrementally as the process is developed. You write one test, you add another test, and so on. You can always run regression tests to check that changes to the program have not introduced new bugs. Regression testing is something like this. You run a set of tests on your code and the code passes. You add new functionalities or add additional code to you increase the code size by adding more code to it, or you change the code by adding more code to it. Now, again, you run all the tests that the code had already passed before the new addition. This is called as regression testing. Simplified debugging is another benefit. When a test fails, it should be obvious where the program lies. The newly written code needs to be checked and modified. You do not need to use debugging tools to locate the program or the problem, because you already know where the problem is, because you're testing every time you're changing or adding new code. The next benefit would be system documentation. The tests themselves act as a form of documentation that describe what the code should be doing. Reading the tests can make it easier to understand the code. Now, one of the most important benefits of TDD is that it reduces the costs of regression testing. Regression testing involves running the test sets that have already been successfully executed after you have made changes to the system. The regression test checks that these changes have not introduced new bugs into the system and that new code interacts as expected with the existing code. Now, regression testing can be time-consuming, it can be expensive and impractical. In such situations, you have to try and choose the most relevant tests to rerun, as it is easy to miss important tests. However, since TDD makes use of automated testing, dramatically this reduces the cost of regression testing. Existing tests may be rerun quickly and cheaply after making a change to the system in test-first development, All the existing tests must run successfully before you add any more functionality or make any more changes. As a programmer, you'll also get confidence that the new functionality that you have added has not caused or revealed any problems with the existing code. So, this is about test driven development.